Hello, Marshall Crosley. This is Real World Pediatrics. So I wanted to talk today about kids and divorce and how it affects them. So, okay, your marriage is on the rocks. Well, join the club. You're not the only ones who have this problem. You're not the first, and you're not going to be the last. Now, maybe you've resorted to screaming at each other, yelling at each other, calling each other names, maybe even throwing things at each other. So with that stated, are you going to quit, or are you going to try to get it all back together again? Now, since you've already invested a lot of emotional energy so far, it may be worthwhile to give it another try. I don't care how bad things are, you can always repair them. The important thing is to have a good attitude and be willing to look at the situation from the other person's perspective, which in this case is your spouse. Now, there's got to be something that got you together in the first place. Must have been something there. The goal is to find out what it is. At the same time, I want you to think about your kids. I'm going to assume that you do have children. Now, you may want to eject your spouse out of a moving F-15 at Mach 3, but your children, I guarantee you, they don't feel that way. I once worked with this doctor up in North Texas who was divorced. One day he comes up to me, he said, I'd like to run over my ex-wife with a Mack truck, but she is the mother of my children. Try to think of the kids before getting a divorce. Now, at this moment, you may feel like that doctor I worked with, but your children, I'm pretty sure, don't feel that way. Your children probably don't share any of the anger that you have toward your spouse. You see, within each child is a mom and a dad, psychologically speaking, trying to fuse together to form their personality. And the child wants the mom and dad to stay together. In fact, the mom and dad staying together is integral to the child's development and well-being. Nasty divorces produce fractured personalities in the child. Much of the psychological illnesses and pathology that we see in adults later in life are often rooted in an unhappy childhood that is rooted in an unhappy coexistence between the mom and the dad. My stepbrother Stevie, he suffered a lot because of his dad's divorce. He turned to drugs, which eventually twisted his mind and made him unable to live like you and I. He had to live under structured living until he died. Now, in addition to my own personal experience with my stepbrother, I also see the effects of divorce in my practice every day. Kids get really angry when the parents are splitting up or when they're separated. Now, here are some stats regarding kids and divorce. I'll go over a few here and more in another video, and I'm going to post them on the screen. Number 1, lower grades. Number 2, greater chance of not completing high school. Number 3, greater health and mental problems. Number 4, twice as likely to attempt suicide. Number 5, 1.5 to 2 times the probability of living in poverty when they become adults. Next, 4 times as likely to not fit in. Okay. And finally, and this is a really important statistic, 70% of prison inmates grew up in broken homes. Now, hopefully that's enough to convince you to want to try to keep things friendly between your spouse. If you want your children to be happy, well-balanced, functioning adults, it's essential that there's a happy household and positive relationship between the mom and the dad. It makes it more difficult for the child when the mom and the dad are screaming at each other. If you must fight with your spouse, I think you should resolve to take it outside where the children can't hear. I don't think it's a good idea to scream in front of the children or to call your spouse names in front of them. That's a bad deal for them. So to salvage your marriage, you have to resolve to be respectful to your spouse. You have to treat them much as you would treat a coworker at work. Now, if you're treating coworkers at work like your spouse and you're screaming at them, then probably what you need is a complete readjustment in how you deal with people. Most people treat their coworkers with some measure of respect, and that's what you're going to have to do with your spouse. You have to resolve to not calling each other names, and we can all think of a few. You also have to cease and desist from finding everything wrong with them. Now sometimes you can start small just by thanking them for the things that they do right. Even if it's tough to do that, try to find something. In time, those little compliments add up, and you can gradually reshape, your relationship with your spouse. Everything begins with respect. Without respect and civility, your marriage is toast. You also have to ask yourself whether what you're fighting about is important. If it's not that important, forget about it. Don't be like the Sopranos. Tony and Carmela Soprano could never let anything go. They always felt the need to respond, no matter how small. So sometimes you have to look beyond the little stuff. If it's small stuff, see if you can find a way to ignore it. Now, I know many of you watched the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Now that's a classic case of a marriage that fell apart. They grew to the point where they had no respect for each other, and they began to call each other names. That's a non-starter. Name calling cuts to the bone and makes a marriage very difficult. But with a little work, you can repair your marriage. It's not impossible. It's been done before. And the rewards can be great for both of you. Thank you.